Welcome back, you lot. We've got more funky AdMech stuff. A nice surprise Monday reveal because it turns out that the Myrmidon Destructors are coming to plastic. Oh, I love these models. I've loved them for as long as they've been around, and they're doing the thing. More accessible, easy to put together. The list goes on. It's pretty cool, but there are some changes from the previous one, so let's take a quick look, shall we? Let's take a look at these lads. So as they say, the Myrmidon Destructor Host prepares to deliver a litany of devastation. We took a look at the Battle-Pilgryms last Friday. I'll put a link to that video in the description in case you missed it. But now it's Destructor time. And I think it's fair to say that immediately they look pretty good, but then they would, because this has always been an insanely cool unit. They've always looked really cool, and they've basically reworked them slightly and put them into plastic, so there's not really much to complain about here. I will say I was initially a little bit saddened because a core part of the aesthetic for the previous ones that I really liked was the big old deep hoods, and going from this carousel here, it looks like you don't get those big old deep hoods. I mean, that guy's got a hood, yeah, sure, but it's not the one that I really like, which would be those big old deep hoods, the ones where you can't even tell what's happening inside them. I love that, love it, it looks fantastic. And for a moment I was a bit concerned that we just weren't going to get that, but it turns out that you do. You get a couple of them, in fact, in the form of this lot here. So as we can see, we've got two fancy deep hoods. So I'm happy with that. That's cool. I will say something that is a little bit jarring with these is this paint scheme, right? The Forge World way of painting things used to be to make it all grim and gritty, and it wasn't the same as like the heavy metal painting style that we see for the, the box art and the miniatures that they used to show off what's coming up. That's changed. They've made it so that everything is painted in pretty much the same style now, which does in some ways impact the way these hit visually, purely because the painting style is that different from what the old models really displayed. In terms of things like, there's just more colour. That's the only way I can really think to put it. There's more colour. There's more in the way of edge highlights. Everything is a bit more crisp. It's a bit more clean. Whereas when you look at the older ones, yeah, you do have a little bit of highlighting here and there. But overall, the style is just a bit darker and more grungy. It's, I would suggest, in a way, more approachable, for sure. But it's also, distinctly different, visually very different. And so there is a little bit of adjustment that has to be made here for looking at the new ones because they look so shiny and bright by comparison. That being said, for the most part, they seem like pretty decent, relatively faithful recreations. There are some key differences, though, as I'm sure you've already noticed. So if we look at the newer ones, the weapons sit a lot lower. The arms that they're on are a lot more articulated, and it gives a slightly more natural pose to the way the weapons are being held. That I don't mind so much. I think it makes the model look a bit more balanced. I think it evens it out somewhat. They have significantly changed the shoulder pads as well, though, which I'm actually not as big a fan of. See, on these older ones, the shoulder pads are a lot more plain. They're more plain, they're a bit more simplistic, but they do work. And I quite like the fact that they just have a very simple shape to them. Yeah, there's some decoration over the top, but they are a lot flatter. Whereas the new ones are a lot closer to what you'd think of as, the sort of shoulders that you'd see on Space Marines, which I actually don't like as much, because we already see that style on things like Space Marines, which, it doesn't do anything to hamper, the kind of visual identity of these. You know that they're not Space Marines, but I don't know, I feel like that old style still would have worked really nicely. They've also done some alterations to the armour as a whole, as we can see. It still looks really good, though. It looks decent. You've still got all these, mecha dendrites and tendrils and all of that stuff poking out of the chest, which is such a cool design feature. I really like that on the old ones. And they've kept it for the new ones, which is good. I think there are fewer of them in a couple of cases, but they still work. They still look decent. And the overall, presence, the overall silhouette is the same. I am missing this guy with the rebreather thing, with all the tubes coming up to just in front of the face, then more tubes going down to a separate part of the armour that's kind of hanging down from the chest. There isn't really a full equivalent for that guy, amongst these, which is a bit of a shame, because I actually think that that one has a very distinct look to it that makes it very different from the others. I would have liked to have seen that one be directly recreated, but as we can see from this group shot of the 6 that you get in the box, it's just not there, which is kind of a shame, but it's not the worst thing. I just would have liked to see it, you know? Now, the way that they've built the 6 that are on display here makes it look as though, in some ways, those, like, tendrils are only able to be put in certain places. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think they've just done a baffling decision of duplicating the same poses twice. Whether that's on purpose or not, I don't know, but I would be very surprised if you had to have that stuff be exactly the same on each model, and I'd be very surprised as well if the arms are not in some way posable. Like, you can see the repetition there, super clear. But I think, again, that's Games Workshop's fault, not necessarily the fault of the kit. Whenever this was put together, maybe it's a case of they simply took some photos and then they've photoshopped some heads and just done replacements that way. Maybe that's what it is. Either way, it kind of gives the impression of this being quite limited. I would be very surprised if it is as limited as they've made it look, you know? I very much hope it isn't, at least. But yeah, I think these look fantastic. I think they look great. I mean, that unit already looks solid. It's one of my favourites from the Mechanicum range. There's just something beefy and chunky about the models, and they also are kind of alarming in that very special kind of AdMech/Mechanicum way, where you know that at some point was a person, but there's an awful lot of body horror stuff going on underneath to turn them into, effectively, a walking tank with a giant weapon. I mean, especially things like just the sheer size of the legs. Look at the girth on that leg. That is a massive leg. I love the sense of weight that you get from them. It's very cool. Now, of course, we've seen the full group of 6, but there's some other pictures as well, and the hoods look great. The hoods do look great. I like them a lot. I think they've done a really good job with them. They are maybe not quite as deep as the ones from the resin kit, and we are missing that super shallow one with the big rebreather across the front, which is a shame. It's a shame. But these two that have got a bit more volume to them, I think they just look fantastic. They just look fantastic. And then, of course, you've got that big reactor thing on the back of them that looks grand. It looks like proper arcane technology, which is very, very fun. The sheer abundance of tubes and cables on these things, oh, it just looks great. It kind of feels like it's borderline improvised. Like it's just a case of, oh, we need another cable. Where shall we put it? Wherever. Just get it in there, you know? Get it in there. We'll figure it out later. It's fine. These close-ups as well really do highlight the massive difference between the painting styles. I mean, look at the contrast between this metalwork right here. Like, you've got a bit of subtle shading, it's mostly pretty clean, you do have a bit of washwork going on to pick out some of the rivets and stuff, but it's very shiny, it's very neat, it's a very tidy paint job. And then you look at a single, like, picture of one of the other ones, and it looks good, but stylistically that is pretty far detached from what we see Games Workshop doing for all of their models now. So yeah, 6 of these guys in one box, which is nice. 2 different heads. I wonder what the ratio of hood to bare head is. Imagine if you could have hoods on all 6 of them. That'd be grand. It does say that there's, like, for every 3 Myrmidon Destructors, there are 3 servo skulls. I'm really hoping that the old Mechadendrite things are interchangeable as well, because that'll be an oversight if they're not. The fact is that for my money these look great and I want them to be a bit more customizable, and this is one of those units that I will end up getting just for the joy of painting them, really, because I've liked them since they first came out. Now they're in plastic, my preferred material. I mean, I've got no reason to not get them for a nice little painting project, maybe make a little diorama or something out of it. I don't know. Either way, I'm excited. Those look fantastic. Let me know what you think of them in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click all the things. You know the drill. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you for the next one.